Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarottam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjalimanatosmi laye sambodhayet chittam vikshiptam shamayet punaha sakashayam vijaniyat samapraptam nachalayet. Om. In the last class, we actually completed our study of the niyamas, which is shaucha, santosha, tapaswadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana. So the next of the ashtangas that we have to take up is the asana or the posture. So the asana can be translated in two ways. It can be translated as pose. When you call it as pose, then it will refer to how the stance of the body. Whereas when we say posture, it can apply both to the body as well as the mental and the intellectual state, all of them. So that is why asana is probably a better term to use, because it involves the chitta also. So the Patanjali in the sutra number 46 of the second chapter of the Yoga Sutra says, Sthira Sukham Asanam. So Sthira actually means steady, and Sukha means comfortable. So in essence, whatever posture that we sit in yoga sadhana, the key is stability and comfort. But please also combine the next sutra of pranayama also, the next concept of pranayama also. In our posture, the flow of the air also must go very comfortably. There should be no constriction. And this is one of the reasons why we don't slouch when we are actually sitting for pranayama and dhyana. So by and large, what would be the best recommendation as to which will be the perfect asana? There are so many asanas. Hatha Yoga Pradipika talks about a number of asanas. In fact, commentary on this sutra itself talks about a number of asanas, close to 10, 11 asanas are spoken. What would be the best asana to use? I would say the Padmasana is the best asana, because in Padmasana there is the least amount of torture to the body. And of course, Padmasana can be as we normally sit cross-legged, and then you can also slightly improve by taking each one of the legs and place it on the opposite lap. So that also takes a little bit of an effort, but that gives a good stretch to the thighs and the feet, and also the calf muscles and all that. So Padmasana is, and then of course we also have to be comfortable. Basically that's the issue, comfortable, Sukham, and then it should also be stable, Sthiram. In fact, we also saw in our study of the Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, Krishna himself says, Samam kaya shiro grivam dharayan achalam sthiram samprekshya nasikagrasvam. And then in mid samam kaya shivo grivam, the body, the head and the neck, all of them are in one line. Dharayan, holding that posture. Achalam, without moving. And then sthiraha, absolutely established. Sampreksha nasikagram, that is something you can or you don't have to, looking at the tip of the nose. And then, but the next phrase is important. Dishascha anavalokaya, not looking here and there. So make sure that we don't have an eye which will be looking at all the different directions all around us. So that is enough. That means the key is, first of all, there should be no discomfort. And secondly, we should not get distracted, because the most powerful of all sense organs is the eye. Because when we see rupa, if any form that attracts us or puts us off, those two things immediately, instantaneously cause a disturbance of the mind. And therefore, it is proper that when we sit in dhyana, we do not look here and there. So that's why usually the way in which we build the puja room is it's a small place, and then you will probably face the altar, which is like a wall. So that way, the focus and concentration will be on the altar and the devatas that you have placed there. So the next sutra, it actually describes the secret of sukham stiram asanam, what happens if we attain that kind of stability. Prayatna shaithilya ananta samapattibhyam is the next sutra. Prayatna means effort, stress, strain, too much of activity to bring things under control. But when this effort becomes effortless, prayatna shaithilya means effortlessness. Effortlessness also means free from any exertion. It is coming as naturally. Then ananta samapattibhya means when you focus your mind on something that is infinite. Ananta means infinite. So we can incorporate the Vedantic meditation at this point of time and say the Brahma Dhyana that we do. It can also be taken as Ishvara of Yoga Shastra. So interestingly, he uses the word Ananta. And then if we look at the Purana, this Ananta is also the 1,000-headed serpent. You see that a serpent is very restless. It is always be slithering. And plus this serpent, Ananta, actually has got 1,000 hoods. So with 1,000 hooded Ananta, 1,000 here is actually infinite. We also call it as Shesha or Sheshanaga. This infinite Ananta is the one, according to our Purana, who upholds the entire universe. But what do we see even in the physical structure of the universe? It is very stable. In fact, if the earth shakes, it is an earthquake. So it is very stable, even though the 1,000 hooded Ananta is holding up this universe. For the universe to remain stable, this Ananta has to hold the pose. He cannot shake. We see the same in Greek mythology also, where Atlas actually carries the world. He cannot even shift the globe that he is holding on one of the shoulders. If he shifts the globe, then there will be a severe earthquake. And that means in that steady posture, he has to hold this Ananta. When he moves, creation happens. And then, as he is also moving, Purana says he also creates the 11 Rudras simultaneously, so that the Laya also can take place. That's also very significant in the yogic context. When the asana is Sukham and Stiram, Manolaya takes place. Manolaya means the total dissolution of all chittavrittis will take place in the mind. And therefore, Rudra is also considered in religion as the Manobhimani Devata, that is the Devata who rules our mind. And thus, this can also be looked at as a metaphor that at any given moment we have thousands and thousands of thoughts in our head, which keeps disturbing our mental and physical stability also. It is not merely mental stability, it disturbs even the body, whatever happens to the mind, we have already seen earlier, angame jayatva, and then erratic breathing, shwasa prashwasa, is a problem we have seen in the first chapter already. So when you are sitting in dhyana, this sutra also has a oblique recommendation. Why don't you contemplate on this ananta? Ananta can also be considered as infinite, but as when Ishvara Pranidhana is included, it can be taken as the Shesha Ananta of the one of the pantheon of our gods. So to overcome the antarayas, such obstacles such as angamejayatva, that is shaking of the body, because the Ananta doesn't shake his body when he is holding up the universe, so our body also should remain stable. So you can see the restlessness of the body is dealt with in the 31st sutra of the first chapter, which says angamejayatva, whenever there is movement of the body, it is one of the causes for chitta vikshepa, that is for the sake of a mental disturbance. So how many things can disturb our mind? Dukkha can disturb our mind. Daurmanasya, something that is bothering us and we are unhappy about something or somebody, that can disturb. Angamejayatva, movement of the body. Shwasa prashwasa, breathing in and breathing out. All of them can create vikshepa. So whatever mental disturbances that Patanjali identified in the theoretical part of the first chapter, so the first chapter we can call it as Siddhanta, that means theory, and the second part can be thought of as Prayoga, where you actually put the theory into practice. So in the first chapter he has identified the cause for chitta vikshepa, which is disturbance of the mind, and this ananta is the supreme devata. It can be made as a role model for us not to disturb the movement of the body. A little background about this ananta: it is a serpentine devata. This devata is the son of the original sage Kashyapa and one of the daughters of Daksha Prajapati called Kadru. So Vinata was another wife who gives birth to Garuda, the vehicle of Mahavishnu. And Kadru's and Kashyapa's son Ananta provides the resting place for Mahavishnu. It is on this Ananta that Mahavishnu lies down. So this Ananta, in addition to upholding the universe, in addition to supporting Mahavishnu's repose, with all the 1000 heads, he will always be chanting the glory of Mahavishnu, according to our Puranic stories. So you can see that our mind, while the body is stable, thousands of thoughts that pass through in our mind can be converted into thousands of prayers to Ishvara. So thus Ishvara Pranidhana also can be incorporated in the asana siddhi, in achieving the perfection of the asana. So if you notice the list of the Ashtanga Yoga addressing the antarayas or the obstacles that we get in 131, we have seen dukkha, daurmanasya, angamejayatva, shwasa prashwasa, etc. So what is dukkha? Dukkha is where we have got sorrow. How to overcome dukkha? All the dukkhas can be overcome by practice of yama. So in the first chapter, dukkha is identified as a principle of the human mind. The way in which we can overcome dukkha is given in yama, that is ahimsa. What does it do with ahimsa? With ahimsa, we do not cause dukkha to anybody else. And obviously, it will not cause dukkha for us also. What about Satyam? If you practice truthfulness, it prevents future dukkha. So it is not enough if we simply solve today's dukkha. We must make sure that it never happens to us. So truthfulness or the understanding of the truth. That is, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi will always be there. That very understanding of the truth actually will also prevent both today's dukkha and future dukkha also. This is how we can connect the philosophy. So dukkha. Then what about the other antaraya or obstacle identified in the first chapter? It is disease, vyadhi. So what can we do for the vyadhi? We can use the niyama of shaucha, that is purity of the body, and the food that we eat, the diet that we follow, the rest that we actually give to our body, and the mind which is kept pure. All of these makes us free from vyadhi. So the vyadhi theory is now addressed in the niyamas. What about daurmanasya? Daurmanasya, that is the various disturbances of the mind. It is here in particular, these are disturbances of the mind due to unfulfilled desires and craving. So all these unfulfilled desires and craving can be countered by santosha, which is joyous disposition on the one hand, and also contentment. So we have to map all of the practical methodology given here into the theory pointed out in the first chapter. Restlessness or angamejayatvam is overcome by asana. So what does this sukhasana, sthira sukhasana, do to us? Now, since our spiritual goal is dhyana, as far as dhyana and samadhi, as far as Yoga Shastra is concerned, and that dhyana and samadhi must be with the ultimate reality, Brahman, and Ishvara of Yoga Shastra. That's where we want to then, whatever posture that fosters dhyana is sukhasana. That's another important point to note. I am drawing this wisdom from the Tejo Bindu Upanishad. There is a beautiful Yoga Upanishad, Tejo Bindu Upanishad, which says, Sukhena eva bhavet yasmin ajasram brahma chintanam. Ajasram means flawless brahma chintanam, contemplating on Brahman. When it happens with great comfort, sukhena eva bhavet yasmin. Otherwise, contemplation on Brahman is also very, very stressful. So even that stress should not be there. It must be very, very comfortable contemplation. When that happens, asanam tadvijaniyat, that is the real asana. What is the real asana? The real asana is where our contemplation and dhyana on Ishvara, that is Ishvara Pranidhana, happens naturally and in very easy, comfortable way. Otherwise, please think about it. Whenever you have done puja, how much of stress it causes? I am sure how many times you have felt at the end of the puja, oh my God, it is over. You may not say so, but there is a feeling inside that it is all over. And after you do the puja and all the guests are fed, everybody goes out, and then you are alone. How do you feel? You feel a sense of relief, and then you just sit and relax completely. That itself is an indication that the Ishvara Pranidhana has caused stress to us. So Tejo Bindu Upanishad says that if you are able to do Brahma Chintana, contemplation on Brahma, without any difficulty, without any obstacles, and you experience this sukha, that is the perfect asana. Anything else anyat sukha vinashanam. Everything else is going to destroy our sukha. So this point we have got to bear in mind even when we are doing our religious activities. So the religious activities also must be planned in such a way that it will not cause us freedom from sukha, asukha or dukkha. This is one of the reasons why in all household where people ask me to conduct a puja, except for Shraddha, I tell everybody, have breakfast, have coffee, take care of your diet first. Don't sit and do puja in an empty stomach. Nor we should eat so much that we cannot even sit. This Krishna also has highlighted. So therefore, even in Ishvara Pranidhana, we have to make sure that the body is comfortable, and it is Sukham Sthiram Asanam. It can gain Sukham Sthiram Asanam only when the body is given reasonable comfort. Then, how do we know that we are in a comfortable state? What is the metric? First and foremost, physical stability, we said. So what is meant by physical stability? When we are in that Sukham Sthiram Asanam, if I become completely impervious of my body, that my body even exists when I am sitting in dhyana, it totally disappears from my awareness, then I am in Sukhasana. This we do experience a lot of times. You are seeing let us say you are watching a very absorbing movie. In that most absorbing movie where your mind is completely focused, you don't think about your body at all. So similarly, when we are totally absorbed in Ishvara Pranidhana, also Sukham Sthiram Asanam can happen. Therefore, bodily stability is indicated by our being impervious of its existence. Mental stability is when dualities and confusion of the mind is removed. When you have certainty about what you need to do, how you need to do, all of that, there is certainty, then also there is a mental asana. This point in the next sutra, Patanjali Maharshi identifies. Tataha dvandva anabhigataha. Tataha dvandvan anabhigataha. When a person is in Sukha Sthira Asana, both physically and mentally, from then on, after achieving this asana, abhigata means disturbances. All the disturbances, abhigata means a disturbance. When you are prefixed with an, it is the opposite. Anabhigatat. That means it stops all the disturbances. At that point of time, you are in Sukhasana. So first condition, have I become impervious to the existence of my body? Second, all the disturbances of the mind and confusions and dualities, have they disappeared? If these two things happen, then we are in perfect equilibrium state. How did we incorporate this in the Nitya Karma Anushtana? In our daily activity. This is one of the courses I am doing for Hindu University of America, which is the Introduction to Vedic Ritual. So let me connect one important ritual that we every day do, the Sandhya Vandana. So in the Sandhya Vandana, we have to bring this Sukha Sthira Asana. Physical body must become comfortable, then the mind should become free from disturbances. We do what is known as Anganyasa Karanyasa before we start the Gayatri Japa. For example, you take the Gayatri Mantra. Tatsaviturvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yo na prachodayat. There are 6 words here. Tatsavituhu varenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yo na prachodayat. Use those 6 phrases to get control of disturbances using the fingers. Among all the disturbances of the body, the first we will notice that our body is disturbed when the fingers start twitching. Always. First thing that happens. So what we do is Tat Savituhu Brahmatmane Angushtabhyan Namaha. So we take charge of the one and connect it with another finger, and then we'll say mindfully, now I am controlling the movement of my fingers. Then Varenyam Vishnuatmane Tarjanebhyan Namaha. Bhargo Devasya Rudratmane Madhyamabhyan Namaha. Dhimahi Satyatmane Anamikabhyan Namaha. Dhiyo yo naha Jnanatmane Kanishtikabhyan Namaha. Prachodayat Sarvatmane Karatala Karaprashtabhyan Namaha. We use the Gayatri mantra to bring the physical Sukham Stiram Asanam by taking each one of the words of Gayatri mantra, meditating upon the fingers actually which will be twitching, and the fingers also represent the 5 elements incidentally. Then now you take the care of the internal organs and internal attitudes. Use the same mantra, Tat Savituhu Brahmatmane Hridayaya Namaha. By saying that, we take charge of our emotions. Varenyam Vishnuatmane Shirase Swaha. With the second phrase, we take charge of our thoughts. Bhargo Devasya Rudratmane Shikayai Vashat. Our anger, frustration, desires, all of that we use the word Rudra to remove it. Dhimahi Satyatmane Kavachaya Hum. By crossing the fingers on our 2 shoulders, on the chest, what we are doing is we are actually holding on to the Satyam, the truth, one of the niyamas. One of the yamas. Dhimahi Satyatmane Kavachaya Hum. Then our thought process. Dhiyo yo naha netratmane astraya bhat. We clap and drive away any of the thoughts that are disturbing, and we hold the Ajna Chakra. Then Prachodayat Sarvatmane astraya bhat. We completely drive away all antarayas in the whole atmosphere. This is how we make sure that our body and thought and intellect and worries and everything are actually used, are actually removed using Ishvara Pranidhana. And the highest Ishvara Pranidhana is the Gayatri Mantra anyway. So it's only when we do that we say that we have done Bhurbhuvasvaro Miti Digbandha. I have actually locked myself from all the disturbances from everywhere, both physical and environmental. And of course, emotional and intellectual also. In other words, Adhyatmika, Adibhautika and Adidaivika tapas are all put in ebb away, and we sit insulated from all of these. That is how we can also connect asana shuddhi, sukham stiram asanam with the sandhya vandana procedure. And that's why I always say everybody should do sandhya vandana then. because everybody needs to get asana shuddhi and everybody needs to also get this peace of mind, which we are looking for. So the question is, after achieving the perfection of asana, what next? Now we have made sure that we are sitting in the bar here and without any disturbance. You see the list of antarayas again. Let us go back and look at Sutra 31 of chapter 1. After dukkha daurmanasya angameshayatva, which we dealt with already, the next thing that comes up is shvasa prashvasa. So what is shvasa? Shvasa here in the context of Sutra 31 is involuntary in-breath. We are all the time we are breathing. But our in-breath is involuntary. There is no control, mental control on our in-breath. Similarly, prashvasa is involuntary out-breath. Instinctively we are breathing and out. Therefore, there can be no control on vikshepa either. Because vikshepa also arises because of things coming from outside and our interacting with outside. Our in-breath is impulses coming from outside. They can cause disturbance of the mind. Our out-breath is what we are throwing out into the environment that can cause antaraya. So therefore, deliberate control of in-breath and out-breath with the purpose of overcoming chitta vikshepa is defined as pranayama. In other words, involuntary breathing is not pranayama. Where we actually control the breath is pranayama, which is the fourth of the eight of the ashtangas. So we will not forget again. We have to repeatedly remind ourselves, why are we doing this yoganga? Why are we doing this ashtanga? We should not forget the 28th sutra of the second chapter. Yoganga anushtanat ashuddhi kshaye jnana deeptihi aviveka kyatehe. All these yogangas I am practicing for reducing impurities, ashuddhi kshaye. Secondly, first benefit that is. Secondly, for the continuous illumination, unbroken illumination, no day and night here. Unbroken illumination of jnana until such time I have attained viveka khyati. So, in this sutra, if you take up yoganganushthanat ashuddhikshaye, ashuddhikshaya is what happens in pranayama. So look at the structure of how Patanjali Maharshi is dealing with it. He takes up the antarayas, dukkha daurmanasya, etc. Using those antarayas, he gives techniques in Ashtanga Yoga. Now he comes for why you should do Ashtanga Yoga, and Ashuddhikshaya. For Ashuddhikshaya, he gives us the technique of pranayama. So in Sutra 49, he says, Tasmin sati shvasa prashvasayoho gati vichchedaha pranayamaha. Tasmin sati, if it is there. What is there? What is that? That is perfection of asana. If the perfection of asana is there, having achieved the asana shuddhi, then shvasa prashvasayoho, shvasa is breathing in, prashvasa is breathing out, gati vichchedaha, controlling of that flow is pranayama. That means the erratic breathing, which is involuntary and out of our control, we are actually controlling the Ashuddhi. What is the Ashuddhi? Whenever we are disturbed, usually we also use the word take a deep breath. Now that colloquial statement of take a deep breath itself says we have to take control on our breath. So, as I mentioned, Shwasa is in breath, Prashwasa is out breath, and Pranayama is actually stopping both of these. That means Kumbhaka, which is holding the breath inside, neither breathing out nor breathing in, is this steady and doing it steadily is pranayama. So let us look at the various kinds. When we take the in breath, it is called as puraka. When you hold the breath, it is called kumbhaka. When you breathe out, it is called rechaka. And I personally feel that the pranayama has to be done under supervision, preferably. But some of the texts say that you can also use a ratio. And that ratio of puraka, in breath, kumbhaka, holding, and rechaka, out breath, in the ratio of 16 to 64 to 32. All multiples of 16. So, one puraka, 4 times you have to hold it in the inside, kumbhaka, and then twice the time in exhaling. So that is how the formula is given. So please try, but anyway, usually I suggest that there may be some kind of supervision because we don't want to get sick. So because prana is the energy in our body, ayama means stretching or extending or controlling. So by means of pranayama, we actually extend the energy of our body, enhance the energy of our body. And the next sutra, having defined what is pranayama, the next sutra actually gives the methodology of doing pranayama. The 50th sutra, bahya abhyantara stambha vritti desha kala sankhyaabhi paridrishtaha sthula sukshmaha. Little tongue twisting Sanskrit, but it's not very, very difficult. See, we say that there is an inhalation. So when we inhale, from where does it come? It comes from outside. The Sanskrit for outside is bahya. So that is the first word of the sutra. Then what we do? We exhale the breath that is inside to outside. And that is abhyantara. So first one, bahya, inhalation from outside. Abhyantara, taking it out, which is exhalation. Stambha, the third one, is to make it stop. That is holding the breath inside, which is kumbhaka. So what are all these? Moving out of the breath, holding the breath, and then inhaling the breath. These are all movements of the breath. So for movement in Yoga Shastra, we have used the word vritti. And therefore, bahya abhyantara stambha vrittihi. So the process of controlling the movement of the air, whether it is in breath, holding, or the out breath, is bahya abhyantara stambha vritti. First part of the phrase. Now, how to regulate this vritti is the next question. For that, the answer comes. That must be done with precision. And the precision depends on time and space, desha and kala. Here, desha means which part of our body. So usually Yoga Shastra takes it our torso. That's where you actually breathe or breathe out or breathe in. Desha. What is the kala? Duration. We talked of the duration of 1:4:2. The duration. Paridrishta means regulation. So this bahya, abhyantara, stambha, vritti of the mind, paridrishtaha, regulated. How? Desha kala sankhyabihi, in space, in our own torso, and in time, duration, and in the number of times we do sankhya. I would also interpret the word sankhya as with knowledge, because sankhya also means knowledge. When this regulation, mindfulness has happened, then this control can also be done in a prolonged way, dirgha, or it can be done in a subtle way, sukshma. So now in short, what is this pranayama? It has got 3 movements, vrittis. Number 1, there is prolonged and fine. Prolonged, the word is dirgha and sukshma. So there can be dirgha sukshma vritti. Number 1. Second quality or characteristic of pranayama is inhalation, exhalation and holding. The third one is when it is regulated with precision according to duration and place. Here we have to be very careful. This duration and place must be in keeping with our capacity. It is very, very essential that we should not disturb sukha and sthira, both of the asana and of the mind. Except that pranayama is done mindfully in desha, kala, bhakya, abhyantara, stambha vrittis, it must not create disturbance. Therefore, pranayama also must be sukham stiram. Even that must cause comfort. So how do we do that? We do within our ability. We may slightly push a little bit, but as soon as we discover that it is causing us difficulty, you have to stop. This is one of the reasons why I mentioned that it is good to do under supervision, but we can supervise ourselves. Make sure that if I am feeling strained, I got to stop. So the next sutra, 51, addresses pranayama of a person who has already attained samadhi. See, because we cannot ignore that, right? Here, up to now, pranayama for the person who is trying to get control of the mind, chitta vritti nirodha, is indicated. What about one who has already attained samadhi? What will be his state of pranayama? We need a measurement for that also. That comes in the next one. Virama pratyaya abhyasa purvaha samskara shesha anya. Anya means the other. Other means what? The fourth one. There is a fourth state. The first state is dirgha sukshma. The second state is puraka, rechaka, kumbhaka. The third state is deshakala. There is a fourth state, the samadhi state. In this samadhi state, which has been acquired by a long practice of the yogi, for him, not only he is practicing kumbhaka, he called kevala kumbhaka, and technically it's called kevala kumbhaka, absolute kumbhaka, absolute holding of the breath. What remains is only his samskaras. every other disturbance of the mind is all gone. Still samskaras remain, but those samskaras are held in abeyance, just as when we are falling asleep. When we are falling asleep, what is happening? All our worries and restlessness, everything is gone, isn't it? And we are sinking into sleep. But all the worries and challenges that are come, as soon as we get up, it will come back. Similarly, there is a fourth state also. The yogi has controlled the breath, and in this state only his samskaras remain. He gives a hook there. Your project is not over even though you have achieved pranayama perfection. We have to still work on samskara. We will see what he does. Therefore he says, Bahya Abhyantara Vishaya Akshepi Chaturthaha. There is a fourth kind, Chaturthaha. Akshepi means that which transcends the other three, which is external and internal pranayama. And for this yogi, it happens deliberately and effortlessly. Both of them happen. He reaches that state. So we have labored so much on pranayama and its definition and all this. And it sounds very good. But then always we ask a question, what exactly is the point? All this is fine. What is the outcome if I go through all these things? And you have yourself said that samskara is still will be available. So Patanjali has to talk to us about the benefits of pranayama also. The next two sutras speak about the benefit of pranayama. Number 1 in Sutra 52, Tatah kshiyate prakasha varanam. Tatah, when a person has perfected yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, these 4 of the yogangas, then the light of knowledge will shine through. The screen that is created by, again let us go back to Sutra number 30 of the first chapter. Go back to the Antaraya. What were the Antarayas identified? Bhranti. Bhranti darshana is the phrase that is used there. Illusions that are created by an imagining mind. This happens, that happens. Sometime back I have quoted a beautiful Subhashita to you. There was this honeybee. Towards the evening, it comes and settles on a flower. And what is that flower? It is a lotus flower. What is the problem with a lotus flower? Lotus opens only in sunlight. In the night it will close. In its greed to get the honey, this honeybee enters into this lotus flower and it sunsets and the lotus closes. Now what is it thinking inside? Ratrir gamishyati. The night will pass. Bhavishyati suprabhatam. Tomorrow morning will happen. Bhasvan udeshyati. Surya will rise. Hasishyati pankajashrihi. This lotus will smile. Itham vichintayati. Koshagate dvirepe. Kosha means in this folds of the flower. Dvirepa means one which has got two sucking devices. Refa, that's called refa, which is a honeybee. Koshagate dvirepe ittham vichintayati. It thinks like this. But what happened? There was an elephant which was coming, wanting to drink water, playfully plucks this flower and throws it, which means it will never open. Ha mulataha kamalinim gaja ujjahara. So there are certain bhrantis that can be developed. Reality may be lost. What pranayama does is it removes avidya, it removes trishna, clinging, and it removes delusion and gives our picture of reality. That is the benefit of these 4 angas. What it does is it removes the screen of ignorance, suggesting that we already have the knowledge. Brahmajnana is already there. Only thing is it is clouded by antarayas, by kleshas, ragadvesha, binivesha, all these kleshas, by means of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, extraordinarily practical, it will remove the screen of ignorance. Then what happens? Prakasha avaranam. The shine of knowledge shines through. Benefit number 1. These 4 removes the obstacles. Benefit number 2, Sutra number 53. Dharana sucha yogyata manasaha. Dharana means concentration. After all, the tool for concentration is manas. And that manas is restless. And therefore it is never able to focus and concentrate. Because of practicing these 4 yoga angas, and because of the removal of the prakasha which was obscured, which is availability of the prakasha, a person becomes competent to take up dharana. In other words, pranayama removes fickleness of thought caused by rajas. It will remove the tamas caused by sloth and sleeping. When that happens, we are ready for the next anga, the 5th anga, which is called pratyahara. So what is this pratyahara? Svavishaya samprayoge chittasya sarupanukara iva indriyanam pratyahara. Again, once we break this, it is very easy. Svavishaya means its own objects. So what is the nature of all our indriyas? It gets attached to its objects. Eyes will get attached to form, ears will get attached to sound, etc. Then, these indriyas, that is jnanendriyas and karmendriyas, are disabled from contact. That disabled from contact is called samprayoga. So by means of this samprayoga, samprayoga means contact, asamprayoga means denying the contact, then it is drawn back, anukaraha. What is drawn back? Chittaha. The mind is drawn back. Towards what? One's own swarupa. One's own original swarupa. That is pratyahara. After all, what was the mission statement of Yoga Shastra? Tada drashta swarupe avasthanam. Then to be established in one's own swarupa. What pratyahara does is, it will cut off our sense organs from getting engaged with the objects. Gita gives a much more vivid example for this in the 2nd chapter, 58th verse. Yada samharate chayam kurmongani vasarvashaha indriyani indriyarthebhyaha tasya prajna pratisthita. Whose wisdom is established? Just as the tortoise withdraws all its limbs into its shell, Like that, a person who withdraws all the indriyas within himself in that sadhana, the person will have got wisdom. What kind of wisdom? Pratishtita. What is pratishtita? Sukham sthiram. So we have to link this with the 58th verse of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. This state, Yoga Shastra also calls it as victory over our senses. Indriya Jaya. In other words, the benefit of Pratyahara is Indriya Jaya. And this Indriya Jaya is codified in the last sutra of this chapter 55, Tataha. When this Indriya Jaya has been achieved, Paramavashyate Indriyanam. When Pratyahara is perfected, then absolute, that is Parama Vashyate, control of Indriyanam, sense organs, happens. Now, again we have got to connect this to the theory. In the first chapter, Patanjali Maharishi established Chitta Vritti Nirodha can be done by Abhyasa and Vairagya. Abhyasa Vairagya Abhyam Tan Nirodha, Sutra number 12 of first chapter. So far, by studying the 5 of the 8 Yogangas, which part of the Sutra Abhyasa Vairagya Patanjali Maharishi has addressed? He has actually taken up Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, the first 4 achieve Abhyasa. If only Abhyasa was enough, he would have stopped here. Vairagya also has to be established. So then, first and foremost, he introduces Vairagya by telling us Pratyahara is a method. First and foremost, withdraw sense organs from sense objects. And then you can go for Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. So, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi address Vairagya. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama address Abhyasa. Therefore, when both Abhyasa, Vairagya, Abhyam, when both of them are perfected, then the person will have achieved Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So there is one important point I mentioned but did not address again. What about those samskaras? You remember, those samskaras are still lingering and hanging out there. They can come back at any time. This samskara can be weakened very, very quickly. In the Bhagavata, there is the Navamaskanda of Bhagavata, there is a beautiful story of a Maharshi called Saubhari. This Saubhari Maharshi has practiced up to here. That is Yamanema, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, he has practiced. So he didn't want his samskaras to come up. Therefore, what he did was, instead of pursuing jnana further, he goes using the chaturtha, the 4th kind of pranayama, remember? Where a person can achieve kevala kumbhaka. That means he can hold the breath inside him for a very, very long time. So he goes into the Yamuna river and practices kumbhaka and stays inside the water, holding his breath, thinking that he will not come into contact with any sensual attachment. Unfortunately for him, he notices the mating of 2 fishes. That's it. All his achievements were gone. By this time, he had become very old, frail, with his skin hanging, how can he have any sexual enjoyment? But he had great tapashakti. So because of this tapashakti, he transformed himself into a young and a very handsome person. This is an introduction to the various siddhis and that we are going to get in the Vibhuti Yoga. A person can make himself young and attractive by the perfection of Yoga Shastra. So he goes to the king of Mathura, because Yamuna is on the banks of Mathura river. He goes to the king, Mandhata, his name was Mandhata, and then he says, I want to marry. He was so handsome, so attractive. The king says, I have got 50 daughters, all good looking. You can choose any one of them and you become my son-in-law. All the 50 girls fall in love with him. That is his tapashakti. This jnana which was being slowly removed will come back and get clouded. He marries all the 50. This is how samskara shesha will take over, and therefore Patanjali Maharshi says you have to continue with the rest of the yogas also. But let us look at a simpler solution. Because Yoga Shastra solution sometimes will not work. Very simple solution is, let us bring Ishvara Pranidhana. When Ishvara Pranidhana is brought into every single attitude, every single vritti, every single asana, every single pranayama, in breath, Ishtadevata japa, out breath, Ishtadevata japa, holding the breath, Ishtadevata japa. When all of these things happen, then what happens? Ishvara Pranidhana is the most effective weapon against samskaras coming up. So therefore, in addition to Yama, Shaucha, Santosha, Tapaswadhyaya, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, throughout Ishvara Pranidhana should be sustained. To get Sthira Sukha Asana, Ishvara Pranidhana must be there. Then all the samskaras will be benignly lying there. With that, we conclude our study of the second chapter.